Thinking deeply is often praised. People call it intelligence, awareness, insight. But what they rarely talk about is the cost. Because thinking deeply doesn't just change what you know, it changes how you feel, how you rest, how you live. And most people never see the weight you carry. A deep mind doesn't switch off easily. Even in silence, your thoughts keep moving. You replay conversations, you analyze decisions, you imagine outcomes that never happen. While others relax, your mind keeps working. Not because you want it to, but because it doesn't know how to stop. The deeper you think, the more you notice. Subtle changes in tone, hidden intentions, emotional undercurrents. You don't just hear words, you feel what's behind them. And over time, this constant awareness becomes exhausting, not dramatic, just heavy. People say, just don't think so much. But deep thinking isn't a habit you picked up. It's a way your mind is wired. Your brain looks for patterns, meaning connections. And once you see deeply, you can't unsee. That's the cost of clarity. Deep thinkers feel emotions differently. Joy lasts longer, but so does sadness. Pain doesn't fade quickly. It settles. You don't react loudly. You absorb quietly. And from the outside, it looks like calm. But inside, there's always movement. You can function. You can work. You can smile, so people assume you're fine. They don't see the mental fatigue from processing everything deeply. They don't see how much energy it takes to stay composed. When your inner world is loud, you look strong because you are. But strength still has a cost. The world rewards speed, quick opinions, simple answers. Depth slows things down. When you think deeply, you hesitate before speaking. You question before agreeing. And in a fast world, that can make you feel out of place. Not superior, just misaligned. Small talk drains you, not because it's meaningless, but because it stays on the surface. You want conversations that connect, that reveal something real, but those are rare. So socializing becomes tiring, not joyful. And slowly, you start choosing silence. Here's the paradox. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone, because connection without depth doesn't nourish you. It just fills time. So even when you're included, part of you feels unseen, and that quiet loneliness adds to the cost. Deep thinkers often carry too much responsibility in their minds. You think about consequences, other people's feelings, long-term outcomes. You don't act lightly, and that makes decisions heavier. Life feels slower because you consider more. Rest requires mental permission, but when you think deeply, your mind resists letting go. You feel like there's always something to resolve, something to understand. So even in rest, part of you stays alert, always observing. You expect more from yourself, not perfection, but coherence. You want your actions to align with your values, your words to match your thoughts. That inner standard creates pressure, not from the world, from within. Clarity is powerful, but it also removes illusions. You see relationships more clearly, systems more clearly, people more clearly. And sometimes what you see is disappointing. Ignorance protects, awareness exposes, and exposure hurts. Eventually, many deep thinkers speak less, not because they have nothing to say, but because they've learned. Not everyone wants depth. Not everyone listens. Explaining becomes tiring. Defending your perspective becomes draining. So silence feels safer. At some point, you realize something important. You don't need to explain your depth to everyone. You don't need to carry every thought out loud. some understanding, is meant to stay internal. And that realization changes everything. The cost of thinking deeply is real, but it's not a punishment. It's a trade. You give up simplicity, but gain clarity. You lose ease, but gain understanding. And while it's heavier, it's also truer. Depth needs boundaries. Not every thought needs attention. Not every emotion needs analysis. Learning when to step back is part of maturity. Depth becomes sustainable only when you protect your energy. Not every space deserves your depth. Not every person can meet you there. When you choose environments that respect thoughtfulness, the cost feels lighter. You don't need many, just the right ones. You don't need to fix your mind. There's nothing wrong with thinking deeply. The goal isn't to become shallow. It's to become balanced, to carry depth without letting it carry you. Thinking deeply has a cost, but it also gives you something rare, a life lived with awareness. If you feel the weight of your thoughts, you're not broken. You're simply seeing more. And learning how to live with that clarity is a quiet strength few people ever develop.